everybody. My name is Isla Monical. I'm Miss Randolph County's Teen 2024, and welcome to episode 10 of You Know Them, Not Their Story, featuring Miss North Carolina 2023, Taylor Loyd.
There we go. Cool. How are you? I'm gonna
I'm
pop.
great. How are you? Oh, okay.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, 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 good. Yes, I'm at my parents' house today. I had an appearance last night in Statesville. And so I am here for the morning. Had an interview this morning on the radio, which I just called in. Made it nice and easy. Got sweatpants on the bottom, so
Oh, I have pajama pants on right now.
gorgeous, amazing.
All right, let's just jump right into this. Tell me a little bit about your CSI.
So my CSI is called the Arts Connection, and it really focuses on arts accessibility, education, and elevation in our communities. It was inspired by the experience I went through when my brother was run over by a lawnmower and was in the hospital for 3 months, and being in a coma for a month. And that huge tragedy for our family when he was fighting for his life, the arts were something that gave me a place where I could express myself and feel normal when nothing else was normal. And also for him during his recovery, it allowed him to have some agency over his life and also to engage in some brain function when he was in a coma, there was no other way to, engage in some brain function. Music, it interacts with every part of the brain. And so seeing that role in his recovery and then in my emotional growth out of that experience, I really wanted to give back. So, I founded a nonprofit, Healing Hearts Through the Arts, in 2018. But I've been doing the work with this cause for the better part of the past 13 years. But was incorporated as a nonprofit in 2018. And that kind of provided me the ability to raise money, put on fundraisers, some of those things. It widened my reach there. And as Miss North Carolina, I recognize that it's important to be broad because there are so many people from so many different walks of life that I'm interacting with on a daily basis. And so the arts connection kind of brings all of those pieces together as a general arts advocacy initiative.
Great, thank you. So what is your story? Since this is called You Know Them, Not Their Story, what is your story?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this with talking about what my brother went through. Um, and my story and his story are very intertwined because when you go through an experience with a loved one, um, even if the traumatic event is not happening to you, it is certainly affecting you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 7 years old when the accident happened. I was at home that day, and I remember seeing um, what had happened when he was run over by a lawnmower. So he lost his stomach, spleen, and left kidney, significant amount of his intestines, um, suffered a traumatic brain injury, and like I said, I was 7 years old, and I like to say I was too young to even watch scary movies and understand what these images even meant that I was seeing. All I knew is that my brother was fighting for his life and that we didn't think he was going to make it. And that's a lot for a 7-year-old to comprehend. And, I was at an appearance yesterday and I asked the little girl, I said, "How old are you? How are you doing?" And she was talking about princesses and all of her favorite 7-year-old things. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I was at that age when that happened. Um, and so I've always been an artist. I come from a family of musicians. But it wasn't really until that happened that I had a reason to interact with the arts in a different way, that it was outside of just, oh, I like to sing. It was, no, this is actually providing me some catharsis. This is providing me an escape. And that was something that was very important for me. There's certainly a lot of avenues that I can rabbit hole into when it comes to my story, but I think that the through line of my life, even before the accident happened, the through line of my life has been that I am an artist and I care about people. And the accident taught me how to do that in a different way, in a way that allows me to connect with people. I think that that is one of my strengths as Miss North Carolina, is that those experiences in my story do allow me to walk into any room and connect with anybody, even if they don't think that they will have anything in common with me. It's the stories that we hold that give us the ability to connect with people.
Absolutely. And how have you made a difference and implemented the arts connection as through your reign as Miss North Carolina?
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been doing the work for over 13 years, and it started as a Girl Scout project. So certainly it has evolved since then. And it kind of started with me collecting music and art supplies to donate to the Loyd Children's Hospital where my brother was treated. And then I started donating more places, and that went overseas. And then I ended up as the youngest advocate from North Carolina on Capitol Hill during the Arts Advocacy Summit, as a teenager. And I recognized that it's not just about the grassroots efforts, and it's not just about the big legislative efforts, but it's about trying to bridge those things together. So before I was Miss North Carolina, it was a lot of grassroots and big circles. And as Miss North Carolina, I have the ability to connect with more grassroots communities in bigger entities. Like a couple weeks ago, I had a meeting with the Kennedy Center about accessibility, and we talked about, what it means to promote accessibility in the arts as an artist, as a patron. So that's really big. But it's also, I think, as Miss North Carolina, the difference has been made in that I am connecting those two beings, that it's not just up here or down here, but it's trying to bring those things together. And so in the thousands of people that I've spoken to and presented to, as a title holder, I have my school program and I have my elevator pitch and I have all of these things that I do, right? Because that's what's expected. But the role of Miss North Carolina is so interesting and cool because I can bring this big stuff over here to the grassroots people down here. And I can be the voice for the grassroots people down here to the big entities up here. So even when I go to a local preliminary pageant in North Carolina, when I think about my experiences talking to people that are in big opera houses and these conversations that I facilitated in seeing what change people are making in their spaces, seeing how I can pull that into North Carolina communities. Like I said, going to local preliminaries, I recognize a lot of people have never heard opera before. And so I'm an opera singer by trade. So instead of just saying, here is a resource where you can get a free opera ticket, right? That's great. But how can I actually bring it in front of somebody where they can't ignore it? How can I show them what this even is? So I like to call it my little opportunities shtick. And I'll perform a piece from an opera, but I'll give some robust context as to what the aria means, what the character is singing about, what the opera is about, why we should care about this piece of art that was written over 100 years ago. And people seem to have this really visceral reaction when you put it in terms that they can understand. And like I was saying, as Miss North Carolina, I have the ability to connect with all people. And so I don't take it lightly that I should be using my energy and efforts, not just in collecting the thousands of supplies and the thousands of dollars and shaking hands with the people that are high up in the Kennedy Center or with the symphony orchestra or with whatever other entity it may be. It might be the NEA. It might be facilitating a conversation with Renee Fleming, who just won a Kennedy Center honor for her work in the opera and health space, right? I went to one of her lectures and it was amazing. But it's about bringing the information to everybody that in a way that they can understand. And I think that also provides a sense of relevancy and urgency for the importance of the Miss America opportunity, is that we are the people who can use our voices to amplify change.
Absolutely. So what or who inspired you to compete in the Miss America system?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I mean, myself, which I feel like is kind of a weird answer, but I'm more because I knew that I remember watching pageants. I think Randolph County was the first prelim I ever attended, actually, because my mom's from Randolph County and competed in Miss Randolph County and did not win. Um, I remember watching a prelim pageant as a kid and thinking, I think could be good at that one day, but I just don't have the confidence to do it. Like I'm, I could do that, but I just don't have it in me to believe that I could actually do it. Um, and so I kind of synthesized all of the things that I had become as a singer, already having started that work with my community service, enjoying public speaking in school, being an academic. And it kind of occurred to me how much it was something that I wanted to do. With that being said, my mom was Miss Statesville 1992. And so I had the perspective of somebody who I could see the relationships that my mom formed with people she competed with that she's still friends with, and that I consider to be like my adopted aunts. And it was seeing that and that impact and recognizing that my parents met because my dad was a local volunteer. That was it was like it was like a family reunion type of thing whenever we'd see pageant family. And looking back in the scrapbooks and seeing some of the people who now are involved in the Miss North Carolina organization that my parents were just like hanging out with as friends back in the day, and now I get to work with them in a professional context is just really cool. But then also I think that a pivotal moment for me was when I got to meet Miss America 2012, Carissa Cameron. So I talked about my brother, and there used to be a partnership between Miss America and Children's Miracle Network hospitals, and which is it's a network of hospitals across the United States and Canada, that provides very high level of care and individualized attention to the needs of children specifically, and kids who had very compelling recovery stories or health journeys could be nominated to become their state champion. Well, Preston was in the running for the North Carolina state champion. Interestingly, they did not start compiling video footage and his application for him for a while because they didn't think he was going to live. So then they had to scramble the video together and get it into the national, board, whatever, however that all worked. So Preston was chosen as the North Carolina champion. His face was on a Frosted Flakes box and outside of the Walmarts. And we got to go to Washington, D.C. and to Disney World, accompanied by Miss America at the time, Carissa Cameron, and David Archuleta, who had won American Idol. We got to meet Barack Obama in the White House. And there is a photo of Carissa Cameron shaking hands with Barack Obama, the president at the time, Miss America, and the president of the United States shaking hands. And my brother's head is right behind their hands.
Oh.
And as a kid, I remember meeting her and thinking, like, that was my first impactful time ever meeting a title holder and thinking, oh, she's seeing me. It's not just that was when I realized it was deeper than taking pictures and smiling. But I remember feeling very special and her making me feel special, especially as a sibling of a special needs kid, as of a medically fragile child. A lot of times the siblings and the families do not feel seen by the outside world because the priority is making sure that that loved one is safe and healthy. And so I knew that that moment was not about me, but she made me feel seen. And it was in that that I kind of understood what the job of a title holder was, because I understood what being a title holder was from my parents' experience, and knowing that my mom did the community service and won community service at Miss North Carolina, and that my parents fell in love and they met all of their friends. But seeing a high profile title holder in that capacity really flipped the script for me and made me understand, okay, this interaction is giving me confidence. It's the confidence that I need to want to do this thing. It wasn't until 5 years later, maybe, that I started competing, but that planted the seed in me, to want to make that impact as Miss whatever, Miss North Carolina, as Miss America.
So you did some competitions in the Outstanding Teen program.
I did.
So what was it like from switching from teen to Miss? What was that like?
Okay, so I did teen 3 years and I did not win. My first year, I was a double prelim winner and I was second runner up. To Marissa Garrison, who became a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader and now is working at Disney World as Elsa, which is super cool. We were both double preliminary winners that year, which was crazy. Like, that never happens that you have two double prelim winners. So I was her second runner up my very first year. I was like brand new to pageants, and I remember people being like, "Where did you come from? Like, who are you?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just like to sing and talk. I don't know." Second year came back and worked my booty off. I truly did everything to try to be the perfect Miss North Carolina's outstanding teen. I did not make top 5. I did not win any awards. That was really pivotal for me. That I went in my first year, the only thing I knew was just being myself. And I did so well. Second year, tried to be the perfect image of what I thought they were looking for, and did not do nearly as well. So my third year, I came back, and the Charlotte Mech director, Michael Magoo, who is still a dear friend of mine, he was like, "Please come back. Like, this can be your redemption arc, whatever you want to call it, but just give it one more go." I was offered to college, and the eligibility rules had changed, so I got a bonus year, went to Charlotte's teen, and I was like, okay, like, I'm just gonna do my best. And I was third runner up and won an Evening Gown Onstage Question Award. And that was the year that Carly Sanderford won. And I knew that I always wanted to compete in Miss. My goal was always to be Miss North Carolina, to be Miss America. But it starts on a local stage, whether it's a teen or as a Carolina Star. I wasn't a Carolina Star, but it's always starts somewhere. And so I took those years as growth opportunities when I made the very conscious choice of how I wanted to prepare for Miss. And I took a couple of years off, and the pandemic happened, and I remember sitting at my house, my parents' house, and looking at my mom and being like, "Mom, I just want to compete in a pageant. Like, when the pageants start back up, I just want to do a prelim. I just want to do it so bad. I want to compete for Miss North Carolina. I just want to do it." She said, "Taylor, if you accidentally win Miss North Carolina without being ready to go to Miss America, you're going to kick yourself. You need to wait until you are ready to go to Miss America before you compete at Miss North Carolina, because you never know what can happen." Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, no way I would win on my first try, whatever. But okay. got my feet wet with a festival title, and that title, the North Carolina Rhododendron Pageant, um, was kind of in the old school days very prestigious in line with Miss North Carolina. And there are a handful of Rhodo queens that went on to become Miss North Carolina, myself included, including Michelle Warren, who was first runner up to Miss America in the 90s. Mackenzie Faggert's mom was a Rhodo queen, Lori Boggs, who was Miss North Carolina. And that title, there's no like next level. You just win that pageant. And so I was very focused with that title on the community work and the connections because I wasn't having to balance my time between that and preparing for the next level of competition. And it kind of changed how I approached being a title holder in a way, because I had that different kind of balance and I let myself have fun. The whole thing was just about having fun, and that allowed me to fall in love with the Miss America opportunity all over again. So to answer your question, all that to say, when I decided to do Miss, I said, okay, I can walk out of this thing and at a prelim, at state, whatever, and I might not win. I might not win anything. I mean, we saw what happened in teen. I could be a double prelim winner. I could win nothing. We don't know. But if I walk away with something, I want to walk away having fun, having made friends, having been proud of myself for being myself. So that's how I did it. In the middle of the competition season, however, we got news that there was a new owner for the Miss America opportunity and there would be some changes. So I competed at my local with social impact pitch, no fitness, talent being, 40% or some odd number. Find out, okay, things are changing. Going into Miss North Carolina, now it's going to be talent 20%, fitness 20%, evening gown 20%, it's public speaking the rest of it. I said, okay, game on. Because I thought to myself, and I say this to myself often, especially in preparing for Miss America when you have no idea what's going to happen, no matter how hard you prepare, they're going to get their girl. They're going to get their girl. Kira Kazantsev, who won Miss America playing the Red Solo Cup, would have won Miss America without having to do talent. She would have won Miss America the way that she did when talent was 30%, 40%. Cara Mund would have won Miss America without swimsuit or with it. Nia Franklin, same thing. Camille Schreier won Miss America the year that they decided that talent was going to be almost half of the score. And she won Miss America with a science experiment. And so there's no perfect formula for being the perfect Miss whatever, for being the perfect Miss North Carolina teen, for being the perfect Miss North Carolina, for being the perfect Miss America. There's no perfect formula. And so I knew that if I go in and I don't represent all of the parts of myself and I don't win, how will I know that they actually got to know me and my story? So that was very, it was a really beautiful journey of self-discovery. And that is one of the greatest things that I've gotten out of this experience, just the Miss America opportunity as a whole, is the self-discovery of it all and learning more about myself and seeing how my interactions with others can make a difference and learning something about myself through how it impacts other people. So getting ready for Miss America is the same thing. It's not so much, okay, in teen I had to, which I will say, I will add, in teen I had to work very hard at seeming teen because I've always been very mature, and which is funny because I'm a total goofball. I don't know why people always said that I acted too mature and too serious. I guess it's like the opera singer stereotype. So it's less of when you're teen, you act fun, and when you're a miss, you act serious. It's not that. It's just, who was I when I was 15 years old and I walked on a local stage for the first time? And who am I now? getting ready for Miss America. Those are two very different, I'm like literally getting emotional. Those are two very different women, but they are also the same woman.
Mhm.
Um, and if I had won Miss North Carolina's teen, I wouldn't have won Miss North Carolina. Um, if things hadn't happened the way that they would, I would not know how to prepare for Miss America the way that I am. I would be afraid of taking the risks that I've taken. If I had not played it so safe that it bit me in the butt. Um, so to others, I say, look at your experiences and really think deeply about the parts that hurt, that stung, and the parts that felt really good. And I bet the parts that felt really good were the parts where you said, you know what, I'm just going to go out and be myself. I've done the work. I'm just going to do it now and see what happens.
Yeah. So I've got one last question for you, and then we'll be all done.
Cool. And I'm very verbose. So most of the interviews that I do, it's like all, have to be very concise and all of that. But I'm like, I like telling my little stories and sometimes I like, belaboring a little bit. You can
Yeah,
edit some
I
of that out.
completely switched this up. I have a list of questions that I normally ask, and I asked you some of them,
Uh-huh.
but I think I left out two. Um,
Uh-huh.
to kind of, I don't know, I'm acting like a judge right now. Just pretend this is your Miss America interview. I don't know.
Gosh, yes.
But my final question is, what is one goal that you have during your reign as Miss North Carolina, and how do you think you'll be able to achieve it?
Mm. So, I mean, I'd be remiss not to say one of my big goals as Miss North Carolina is to become Miss America. Miss North Carolina has not become Miss America since 1962. That was 62 years ago with Maria Beale Fletcher. And the way that I am pursuing that goal is by taking risks. Because, I don't know, there's some quote, it says, well-behaved women seldom make history. And I like to think of that in a different vein, though, in that playing it safe doesn't necessarily do anybody any good because it is in the fibers of our inner beings that create the cultural zeitgeist, right? Sounds very philosophical. So that, of course, is a big one. And I recognize, only about 5 Miss North Carolinas in the past 25 years have made the finals at Miss America. So I am trying to do everything I can to bring some recognition back to our state program because it is a competitive state program. It is not an easy state to win. I've seen other states competitions and I think, wow, like we really have some incredible talent in North Carolina. There's no reason why the past 25 Miss North Carolina shouldn't have made the finals at Miss America because they're all wonderful in their own ways. And so it's about how I approach some of these things that hopefully can make a difference. So, for example, one of the things that I did that definitely was more of a risk and took some courage on my part to say, this is what I need, was I brought on a PR agent. Miss North Carolina has never done that before. And so saying, okay, here's a space where I feel like I can grow. Miss America does media appearances and interviews on a daily basis. How can I make my job as Miss North Carolina look like the job of Miss America? Okay, I need some help. Bring on a PR agent. And so I was on the front cover of the Charlotte Observer the other week because I was able to facilitate some impactful conversations with my PR agent and land that. And that has been really, really eye-opening in my Miss America preparation. Another one of my goals is recruitment. I talked about it in my onstage question at Miss North Carolina, was that I wanted to recruit in a different way. And I will continue being verbose. I was the vice president of recruitment for the UNC Panhellenic Council at UNC Chapel Hill, which is the largest women's organization on campus. There's a lot of similarities between that and the Miss America opportunity. And after the pandemic, I saw there was a huge drop in numbers, and also a lot of people were dropping out of recruitment and not wanting to participate because they didn't feel like it was a place for them. So I said, okay, how do we change this? I totally changed the recruitment model. The application that asked questions that made some people feel uncomfortable, like instead of asking, where's your favorite place that you've ever vacationed, when somebody might not have gone outside of the state of North Carolina before, that is a very different question than if you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be and why? Right? And so making that more inclusive and accessible to more people, I made it ADA compliant for the first time in UNC Panhellenic history, which was a huge accomplishment, and facilitated some corporate partnerships as well. Wanting to apply that model to the Miss America organization and the Miss North Carolina organization, it's a lot more than just social media. My advisor, when I was VPR, Vice President of Recruitment, told me, she said, Taylor, if people are already following the Panhell Instagram, like the people that follow the account are the people that are already interested. How can you get people interested who don't even know what it is? And I think of Miss America in the same way. How do we get people interested if they don't even know what it is? Or maybe they've heard of it, but they don't really know what it is or what we do here. And so that's how I go back to that grassroots effort and being authentic, which is such a buzzword, but not being afraid to get my hands dirty and sit down on the floor with kids and say to the quirky theater kid who looks a whole lot like I did when I was 12, you should do a pageant. You seem like you have a great personality and would have great stage presence and you speak well. Why not do it? And they're like, but I don't look like you. And I'm like, no, but I looked like you when I was your age, right? That woman is still a part of me. And so it's really just tapping into those communities that maybe they've never met a Miss North Carolina or a title holder ever. And looking at recruitment in a different way, because it's not just about getting more women to compete. It's also about creating a community that is supportive of our mission, empowering women to lead. Everybody should agree that empowering women to lead is a good thing. And Miss America is doing that. And so if I, as a person, can do something that creates a broader impact than just posting on Instagram, because the people that are following me on Instagram, like I said, are already somewhat interested. They already kind of know what I'm doing. It's a lot more impactful if I give somebody their very first introduction by me just being Taylor. Sure, I have a crown on my head, but it's about me being Taylor that makes people realize, oh, this is different than I thought it was. And that's what creates a multi-generational legacy. That's what creates more volunteers, more supporters, more viewers, more social media interaction, and more word of mouth for the importance of what we're doing as the largest provider of scholarships to women in the world, as an organization that is promoting women's empowerment and friendship and success and talent, and being all of the things that you want to be and none of the things that you don't.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all about your story, how you're making a difference. Thank you so much for coming on, and
Thank
we are
you.
all cheering you on when you
Thank
hit that.
you. Awesome. Thanks so much. It was so great to chat with you.
Bye.
Bye.